Today we're going to be looking at a website where you have to log in order to be able to web scrape the content that we want to get. And the website is also expecting you to have some kind of cookie set and also pass some data from these cookies to the login form. So it's a little trickier example of how to do login with web scraping, but I'm going to show you step by step how to do this. So first we have the website. It's a internship website for Indian students, I think. I had one of my students ask me about how to scrape this website. So we go on to, well, first you need to register. If you don't have a user inside, just use a temporary mail like temp email or something like that. If you don't want to use your own email, you can use like a disposable email to register inside there. So go ahead, make a user inside there. Then when we go to the login form, let me show you what we're doing here. I open up my Chrome Developer Tools. And we go to the login form and let's watch on the network tab here. So there we go. Now I log in. And then it shows the internship postings. These are the postings we have the objective of trying to scrape in our web scraper. So how do we log in using Nodejs Request on this website? Well, I'm going to show you that now, step by step. Now that we logged in and have the network tab open inside of Chrome Tools, let's take a look at the request we have first here. So this is the login request inside of Postman or inside of Chrome Tools. We can see that it's a post request. It has a URL here and it has a lot of headers and cookies that's been set. Now you can see my form data for the form here, and yeah, that's my password. I'm okay with the password. I will change it, and I actually don't care about this account so much. So that's the form data that's been sent, and that's all the headers. Now a quick tip, if you want to test this request inside of Postman and not have to copy all the headers manually and the form data, we can right click here and say copy and copy as curl request. And then let's go inside of Postman and let's open up a new request here. And let's say import and paste raw text. And let's just paste in the curl request here. And then Postman fills up the request with all the headers and the body already being set, which is really convenient. Then we can test, does the request still work inside of Postman? And we can see it still works. It says you're already logged in. It's okay because I am actually already logged in. It sees that the cookie is already logged in this session. So what we want to do now is to replicate this inside of Nodejs Request. So how can we do that? Well, let's try and see how much you need to be able to do this request here. If I disable the cookie here, and I also delete the cookies inside of Postman by clicking on the cookies up here in the corner, clearing them all out. And if I don't have the cookie set down here in the request, well, then we get a 403 forbidden. That means that the request is forbidden and it says something about CSRF, the request is not allowed. So we need to have cookies set on this request. And the cookies are initially being set when we go onto the front page of this website. So if I try to log out here, the cookies are originally being set just as we visit this website. And that's sometimes the case with these authentication websites, that you have to visit one website, have a cookie being set, and then you can log in onto the website when you have this cookie set. So you have to do that inside Nodejs Request sometimes. And let me show you now how we can do that. First, let's just make an empty folder for a project to be inside. So make dir, let's call it cookie off scraper. Let's open it up in Visual Studio Code and let's add some packages. So here we have a totally empty directory opened up in Visual Studio Code. And let's add request and request promise. Now let's create a index.js file, index.js, and let's start making some requests. So const request require request promise, and let's make an async function. Let's call it main, and let's call main down here in the bottom. So here we can say const result request .get, and we need to get the first front page in order to get our cookies set inside of request so that we can do the login request. Because remember, if we don't have the cookies set, the login is going to say 403 forbidden. So let's go and say the site was called internshala.com, and let's go and say await here, and let's go also and get the login URL we found inside Chrome Tools, this post here. Let's do that after, and we say login result await request post. We have the URL here, and we also need to pass in my username and password. So we have email and my password here. So we have a comma, and then we can say form equals email. It's my email. Password is this one. Okay, let's see how that fares. Let's try node index.js. Let's see what happens. So we get a status code 403. Why do we get a 403? Well, because we are not saving the cookies at all inside of request. So let's try and say defaults, and then have a curly brace and say char equals to true. So now when we had set the char to true, request is going to save the cookies from request to request. So that means we go and visit this page first. Then request is going to set the cookies inside of its cookie jar. That's what they call where they store all the cookies. And then it's also going to have the same cookie set when we do the next request, in this case the post login request. So we save the cookies by using setting char to true. Now let's try and run node index.js again. And it looks like it's the same kind of response we're getting here. So why could that be? Well, I think it says something about CSRF. The action you have requested is not allowed. Now, if we take a look inside of our Postman request, we can see there's also a CSRF parameter that's being sent in the post request body. And if you don't have that set, well, it's going to return this response as well. If you only have the email and password set, it's going to return this response with 403 forbidden. This is not always the case for websites. In this case, they have some sort of CSRF security, so they test for that when you do the post request. It's not always the case. Sometimes you could already be done with your login for a site if you just do this and enable the cookie jar. But for this site, they do want to have the CSRF or the I can't remember it now, CSRF token set. Now the next lecture, let's take a look at how we can pass in this CSRF token to the post request. So if you take a closer look at the login request inside of Chrome or inside of Postman, well, we can see there is lots of cookies being set. And one of these cookies is called the CSRF cookie name. And this value in here is exactly the same as the one we have in the form that we sent for the login. Now this CSRF cookie is already being set as we go into the front page of this site. So the question now is, how do we get this CSRF cookie from request and use it inside of the form now? Because if we don't have this form data, then the request is going to say 403 forbidden. Now let me show you how we can do that. So first we need to make a separate cookie jar so that we can get the cookies out from request. Because as it is now, we can't say something like request.getCookies. There's no method on that like that on request. We have to make a separate cookie jar. So const cookie jar equals, actually let me put it down here, request jar. And when you call it like that, it just makes a cookie jar for you to use inside of request. So then we have to say again, request equals request defaults, and then say jar equals cookie jar. And we have to change this to be a let instead of const. And let's remove these defaults here because we set them down here instead. Okay, so now we have a separate cookie jar where we can do something like cookie jar, get cookie string, get cookies, set cookies, and so on. Now let's try and see what happens after we visit the first page. So we can say cookie jar, get cookie string, and with this method we have to put in the site that we want to get all our cookies that has been set for this site. So we say get cookie string, put in the URL, and let's say console log just to see what we have in here. Let's comment this out and let's try and run node index.js and see what happens in here. So here we have a CSRF cookie name with the value here. And this is the value we need to pass inside of the form. We can see here the CSRF test name inside of the form. We need to use that value inside there. So we need to do some string splitting here in order to get this exact cookie value or cookie key and value. So we can say const, let's take this one and put it inside the cookie string variable. I can't even say that. So then we can say const split it by CSRF cookie name. And we can say cookie string and split it by CSRF cookie name. There's really no easier way of doing this when you're just using the default request cookie jar. If you want to do more serious cookie manipulation and stuff like that, you can use an external cookie jar. But for now, I'm just using the default one we have inside of Nodejs Request. And trust me, it's going to work fine. Now, let's try and run and debug just to test out and see what we have here. And have a breakpoint here at the bottom. Let's see, we have cookie string. Then we have split it by cookie CSRF cookie name. So this one, the first one we have here is the value we have right after we have CSRF cookie name. You can see here CSRF cookie name for AC3. And then we split it by that. We get the number 2 item in the split array to be the CSRF cookie name value. So now we need to split it again. Const CSRF. Let's see what the form value name was. CSRF test name. Let's call it that. And we say split it by cookie name. And we say split again. Let's see what we got after this. Come on. What? Oh, is it making an error? Maybe I have an error here. Cookie name split is not a... This because I have to choose the second one of the split array. So we have this one, and the second item in the array is the cookie value. Then we have this one where we split by the semicolon just to get the value only. And this is the first item in the array. So let's just go through it again here. We have the cookie string. It looks like this. We want to get only this key and value. So we split it by this name. And then we get this here, where the second item in the array is right after the splitted value that we took. So it's this one. That's the cookie value we want to get. And now to get rid of these semicolon and space and the other values, I say split again with the semicolon, and we just get the we actually need to get the first item in this array. So then we can say .0 after here, and then we have the exact value we are looking for, which is this one, 9A9A58. We can see that matches with our raw cookie string in here. Okay, whew. So that's not something I usually do when I have to automate the login of a website. Only in this case where they have something with CSRF and they pass it into the form. That's not, I don't think that's, sometimes forms do that with the values, but it's not always you have to do these things. Sometimes you can just get away with enabling cookies and you can just authenticate away. But this one is a little more tricky. But I think we got it now. Let's see. So now we pass in the CSRF in the form. Let's try and run Nodejs.js. Let's also do a console log of the login result and see what we got. Login result. And here we can see it says success true, success page, and dashboard. So that means we are now logged in. And now the server has saved in this session that this cookie is authenticated, and we can now scrape the rest of the pages that is behind the authentication. So we can go into this URL, which is matching preferences, and we can just say something like const matches await request get and put in the URL. Notice we don't have to put anything else in because we already have the cookie set inside of request. And now let's try and save this page to see if we get the right page from the request. Let's say const fs to save the file inside of Node.js. fs, and we can say fs write file sync, and we could put in matches.html with the matches we get from Node.js and see what we have in here. Node index.js. Now let's check it out inside of Chrome. So open with Google Chrome. And indeed, we can see we now have all of the internship matches inside of Google Chrome that we downloaded from Nodejs Request. And then we can basically just go ahead and do any sort of regular web scraping where we can get all of the items in this website. And I think I already shown you that inside of the course, so I'm not going to show you it with this example. This was more to show you how we can log in and authenticate ourselves in a website that uses something like cookies and session authentication and a little bit of CSRF sessions or tokens. So I hope you got a lot out of this, and if you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know. And yeah, I'll see you around.